Am I glad he's frozen in there and that we're out here and that he's the sheriff and that we're frozen out here and that we're in there and I just remembered we're out here.
Good day all, RobotnikHolmes here, and my, what have we here? I'm really digging this cover drawn by Spaz. It's full of so much detail. The robots are cool and shiny, the setting is like an ice-filled mountain with reflective surfaces, and it's got our heroes Sonic and Sally hanging on for dear life on a cliff edge. Though I'm positive the stories themselves aren't going to get that serious, to the point where the heroes' lives are put at stake. Oh my god, their fricking lives are at stake! In A Blast from the Past, we open up with Sally falling from a cliff after the freedom fighters are ambushed by SWAT bots. Sally is thankfully rescued from a grisly fate by Tails, who catches her in mid-air. I'm not exactly certain why our heroes are up on the snowy mountains in the first place, but what I do know is that they were tracked down by a robo-dog, or rather Sonic's old pet, Mutsky, who had been roboticized. It's a sad reunion for Sonic and his pet dog, especially considering the Hedgehog can still reach out to him and temporarily stop him from fighting them, but he's still pretty much 99% robotic, and it and the SWAT bots make their way out of here. Of course, it's due to Uncle Chuck's interference that the SWAT bots are even leaving, him being the freedom fighters' spy after all. But while Uncle Chuck tells his nephew to anticipate the robotic Mutsky sniffing him out for Dr. Robotnik again, Antoine does something stupid and ends up rolling down the snowy mountain. Tails also finds humour in his dangerous antics. Listen kid, you can't rescue one of your friend's lives and then point and laugh at another one. Although maybe it was a good thing that Antoine did a dumbass thing, because he seems to have stumbled upon a frozen caveman dude, one that was apparently revealed thanks to the SWAT bots shooting laser blasts earlier. I like how frozen he looks.
I just remembered we're out here.
According to Uncle Chuck, the prehistoric Mobian's scientific name is Mobus ursinine sapiens, although Tails gives him the nickname Moby instead, which is a neat choice, but not a well thought out one. You don't see me calling any other humans Homo, do you? Anyway, back in the secret village of Knothole, the heroes bring back the frozen caveman to their house, with Rota thinking it's only decent for them to unfreeze him, and our hero Sonic accidentally speeds up the ice melting process. Now they've got an angry caveman in their house, and he's making a lot of faces that fill up entire panels. Jesus. Old Moby goes around destroying technology and machines around Knothole, and only technology mind you. But when it seems like Antoine is in danger of being struck by the dude's club, suddenly Moby is put in his place by Bunny Rabbit. She lifts him up into a tree for a good time out. Don't get in the way of Bunny and her crush, you got it? So, the freedom fighters get into a dispute and argue over whether bringing back a caveman was a good idea in the first place. And Antoine has some funny dialogue involving his French-sounding speech impediment. Rota insists that they get to know Moby and see another side of him. And then Bunny recalls that the caveman had been holding a primitive-looking paintbrush when he was frozen, which is definitely a lead to go by. And so she draws a picture of him and them holding hands. It's the only way to get through to him to let them know that they're friends. Ah, how cute. This certainly gets through to Moby, and the drawing reminds him of his wife and kid, and cave dog, I guess. And with that thought, he suddenly scarpers out of there, I suppose in an attempt to reunite with his family back in the frozen peaks. Rota says they have no choice but to go after him. Sure enough, the blue blur neumes back to the mountains and eventually spots Moby, surrounded by robots, all ready to give him his anti-dumbass shots. And then Sonic follows his heroic soul and gives payback for the SWAT bots ambushing them earlier and putting Sally in danger. So our hero does a new variation of the Sonic spin that takes out all of the SWAT bots at once, and it leaves the dude dizzy afterwards. I guess even super fast hedgehogs can be dazed. But that also leaves him susceptible to an attack, and that's where the roboticized Mutsky comes back, ready to tear up his former owner. However, Moby is able to quickly think up a plan, and he swings Sonic out of the way to safety. The caveman is ready to repay the favour and smash the robo-dog with a rock, but he's swiftly stopped by the blue boy, who goes on to explain how important the dog is to him through drawings the caveman can understand. In seeing Moby's selflessness, Sonic quickly admits that he had been too harsh on the dude previously. Later on, Uncle Chuck is able to reprogram Mutsky to turn him back into the playful doggo he was before Robotnik took over. And Moby is relocated to a Mobian jungle so that he can feel right at home. The cover story ends with Mutsky giving his paw to Moby. Literally in this case. Don't worry, this silly little dog will get better. Story 2. Prisoners. Just 2 pages of the Chaotix being captured and left in the dark by Archimedes, until he eventually reveals himself to them, though still in shadow for the readers to not know who he is. Yeah, if you want to see where this story goes, just go on over to the Knuckles miniseries review. This needless build-up honestly has no place in this comic for how dull it was. Story 3. Tundra Road, Part 2. Rota's unconscious and heading straight down into the water. Well, until he is gratefully rescued by one of the Arctic freedom fighters. Yeah, these guys the heroes ran into in issue number 26. Sure was nice of Celia and Augustus to rescue him. And once Rota puts on his recovered builder's cap, he suddenly recalls that his family is in danger, and he and the 2 Arctic dudes think up a plan to rescue them. This cuts to, a Trojan horse situation, where the TV with Dr. Robotnik's face on it receives a mysterious wooden horse as a present. And of course, he and his Icebots bring it in, and then of course, the good guys come smashing out of it and beat the crap out of the Icebots. However, that doesn't entirely remove Dr. Robotnik's influence from the frozen North Sea, as he still has a hypnotized army of walruses on his side. Augustus brings Rota to safety from the zombie hordes, and then the former has a plan to separate them from him. Rota acts all useless and asks the brain-dead horde if they're gonna kill him for forgetting to attend the last family reunion, and then the polar bear guy's quick thinking is able to smash the ice from below, cutting the walrus herd off from Rota. I guess they're just as useless as Rota now, as now they're isolated from land and with no apparent swimming skills, they just wander around on their floating spot of ice. Before the ice floats separate them both, Rota chucks over an electronic tracker so that he can keep track of his family, and Dr. Robotnik's stronghold unceremoniously explodes in the background. The issue ends with Rota leaving the frozen North Sea in his bathysphere, with the 2 Arctic freedom fighters promising to keep an eye on the family in the meantime. Rota bids them farewell with a new incentive to free them from their hypnotized state. And of course, there's an editor's note asking us if we want to see more of these guys. I've got a letter to send you, admittedly a decade or so late, and it says the following. Dear Mr. Gallagher, make better use of your goddamn characters. Alright, so Blast from the Past was about a caveman being recovered from a frozen state. More and more every week, this comic seems to be going even more cartoony than the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. The Adventures one, not the serious one. But at the very least, Angelo De Giussari didn't do a bad job in making a fun story out of this. The Cave Mobian didn't completely express a brash, overly violent disposition, except when he was defrosted and wrecking stuff up. Rather, Moby was like a prehistoric cave painter, so that was different, I guess. Moby was certainly a dopey character. Even before rereading this issue, all I had remembered was his dumb, goofy expressions in half of the pages he was in. But it did my heart good to see that he was put in an emotionally relatable light. Not only was the caveman reminiscing on his own family, who were probably dead at that point, but he also appreciated and grew to understand companionship with dogs. For being the main focus of the story, the character of Moby was pretty alright. The other story focus, and one I kind of wish was more on the forefront, was Sonic getting back his roboticized dog, Mutsky. It's been a long time coming, but the comic finally focused on one of Sonic's motivations for fighting back against Robotnik, getting his uncle and dog back. A thing that was resolved admittedly fast in the pilot of the original cartoon, give or take a few episodes. It was dealt with super quick in the comic too, with Sonic despairing for a couple of pages over his dog being turned into one of the villain's more competent slaves, and then by the end he has his pet dog back. It certainly feels like it should have taken a few issues to resolve, like how they handled Uncle Chuck in this comic by having him being in the background for a couple of issues, and then finally being given back his free will so that he could help the heroes. As much as I feel the characters of Blast from the Past were inconsequential to the comic, I still rather liked its story and characters. Tundra Road Part 2 was a little less fun for me. I don't know if it's because writer Gallagher tends to end his story so abruptly, but the ending having Rota leave his family and returning to Knothole just kinda bugged me. I don't see why he couldn't just stay in the northern tundra with the Arctic guys, or further devise a plan to free his herd from their mind-controlled state. It's obvious that he had to rejoin with the heroes and be a part of later issues, but his herd being put on a bus so soon really hurt the story and robbed it of its urgency. The story felt rushed, and the things like the Trojan horse just kinda came out of nowhere, but not in the sense that it was sudden, but rather how much it felt like story beats were cut from publication. With its similar ending to Gallagher's own Tales miniseries, who knows if this was actually supposed to be an aborted Rota miniseries. Either way, I know that we won't be seeing the rest of Rota's family anytime soon. I was pleasantly surprised by the heart of the first story, and the side story's rushed ending didn't do this issue any favours, but overall I found it quite a fun read. Hats off to Digisari. Score for story and characters gets a 3. A large amount of this issue was drawn by Mawini. The former SatAM storyboard artist proves once again just how fun and vibrant his illustrations can be. The way he drew everyone was neatly expressive at best, and just pretty basic at worst. The way he drew Mutski was decent, and the way he drew Moby was fascinating. And the other characters, even if they had little time to be on page, were drawn fine also. Penda's art, meanwhile, for Prisoners was... do I even need to say it? There's only so much you're willing to read of characters casually chatting in a black void about things that aren't going to happen yet. So overall, the art was decent. The art for this issue will be given a generous 3. Final score for Sonic the Hedgehog number 32 is a 6 out of 10. Not the best story ever written, but one that wasn't a waste of time, unless you forgot to overlook the Pendas crap. Next video will be about number 33. It looks uncomfortable. Thank you very much for watching, if indeed you still are, and I'll see you in the next video.